I live with my family on the outskirts of Government Camp, south of Mount Hood. Our house is surrounded by forest, with no nearby neighbors, just a dirt road that becomes impassable when it rains. We had lived there for 4 quiet years, until that October night. The first warning was the silence. A total, suffocating silence. Even the crickets stopped. Our 2 dogs began to growl low, staring at the tree line behind the shed. It was 11:38 p.m. according to the kitchen clock. I assumed it was a bear. I grabbed the big flashlight and stepped onto the back porch. The air smelled of wet soil and something else, sour like damp fur mixed with metal. I pointed the light toward the pines, and for a second, I saw movement. Something was shifting between the trees, not running, but walking, circling the house. The dog started barking frantically. Then came the first hit. Bam! The shed wall shook as if something had slammed its whole body into it. I ran back inside, locking the door. My wife was terrified, the kids awake. I turned off all the interior lights, but left the porch light on. And then we saw it for the first time. A figure stood just at the edge of the light. It wasn't a giant like in documentaries, but tall enough, a bit over 2 meters, broad, muscular, covered in dark, tangled hair. The posture was strange, hunched, like it didn't want to reveal itself completely. It didn't move. It just stared at the house. I shouted, but it didn't react. When I stepped forward, it darted sideways with incredible speed for that terrain. I heard branches snap. Then, silence. A few minutes passed, and when it seemed to be over, came the second hit. This time, against the kids' bedroom wall. The window rattled. My son screamed. I grabbed the rifle, turned off the porch light, and peeked through the curtain. That's when something hurled a massive rock that shattered the dining room window. The sound echoed through the woods. My wife called 911, but the signal kept dropping. She barely managed to give our address before the call cut. Then came the footsteps on the roof. Heavy, slow as if someone was walking from end to end, dragging something. The dogs outside were going wild until one yelped and fell silent. I went out to the porch, shaking, rifle in hand. Nothing until I aimed toward the shed. There it was again, crouched, inspecting the spot it had struck earlier. Its breathing was loud, deliberate, its movements clumsy but not random. It was looking for something. I raised the rifle. At that moment, it lifted its head and looked right at me. Its eyes reflected the porch's yellow light, and I could clearly see a face covered in hair, but with recognizable features. A wide nose, a large mouth, and an expression of restrained anger. I shouted into the air. The shot echoed through the valley. The figure crouched, let out a deep growl, low, human-like, and bolted into the woods. We thought it was gone, but it wasn't. For the next half hour, we heard it moving around the house, hitting walls, kicking trash cans, shaking the metal gate. At one point, it threw down the ladder leaning against the garage. Sometimes it went silent. The silence was worse than the noise. At about 1:15 a.m., forest rangers arrived with floodlights. They checked the perimeter and got us out of the house. They found huge barefoot tracks, human-like, around 38 to 40 centimeters long. One dog was still missing. They also found large, muddy handprints on the windows with thick fingers and rough marks. One of the officers, seeing them, muttered, "This isn't a bear." We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, they found broken branches 2 meters high and a stone smeared with dark hair. There was never an official explanation. They said it might have been a confused animal or a trespasser. But I know what I saw. It was flesh and blood, intelligent, powerful. And the most terrifying thing wasn't that it attacked our home. It was that it never tried to come all the way in. It only wanted us to know it was there. And every autumn since then, when the wind rolls down from the mountain, the porch creaks the same way it did that night, as if remembering the path back.
I've never been one to believe in legends. I grew up hearing stories about creatures in the woods of Mount Hood, but I always thought they were tales made to scare tourists. Until that winter night. Until I heard it. It was January, and I was a volunteer rescuer. A storm had trapped a hiker somewhere north of the mountain. My partner Ryan and I rode snowmobiles up the trail with emergency gear, trying to reach the location. The weather turned fast. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, and the radio started emitting a constant hum, like someone breathing close to the microphone. We split up a few meters apart to cover more ground. The forest was blanketed in a thin layer of icy snow. Every step left a deep print, sinking into the frozen earth. At around 11:45 p.m., the wind stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then I heard it. A low, deep howl, long and resonant, that made the snow tremble beneath my boots. It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't a cougar. And it sure wasn't a bear. It was something larger, something that knew exactly where I was. My hands began to shake. I pointed my flashlight toward the slope ahead. Among the trees, something moved, slowly, deliberately, with heavy steps that crushed the snow under immense weight. It didn't run, it walked. Every motion calculated. I froze, breathing hard. The figure approached, leaning forward slightly, its long arms hanging almost to its knees. When my light caught its outline, I saw coarse, dark hair covering most of its body, except for patches on its chest and forearms where the skin showed through. Its eyes were small, deep-set, and fixed on me. It stood over 2 meters tall, powerful and composed, every movement deliberate. I tried to step back, but fear locked my legs. The howl came again. Closer this time. The air grew thick, heavy, as if the creature's presence itself was pressing against me. The snow sank beneath its weight as it stepped toward me. For nearly an hour it stayed around me, circling, sometimes stopping behind trees or fading into the mist. It broke branches, cracked logs, and once I felt something brush the snow just behind me. Every sound was intentional. It knew exactly how close it was to me without ever revealing itself completely. Half an hour in, I tried speaking to it. "Hey, get back!" Nothing. Only slow, heavy breathing, like a drumbeat echoing through the frozen ground. Sometimes it hurled stones near me, never at me, like a warning or a test. I saw it crouch beside a fallen log and drag something across the snow. A branch, maybe, a thick stick. Then it threw it hard against another tree, the crack echoing through the forest. I stood frozen, unable to move. Finally, around 2:50 a.m., the creature stepped back one last time and vanished among the trees, leaving the forest in dead silence. I gathered my gear, trembling. The prints it left were enormous, human-like but distorted, wider with long, splayed toes. The snow was flattened across a wide perimeter, and broken branches hung more than 2 meters high. Ryan arrived minutes later. "Did you see what that was?" he asked, out of breath. "Yeah," I said, "and I never want to see it again." When daylight came and we examined the area, we found more evidence. Rocks ripped from the frozen ground, branches snapped clean, and footprints leading down the slope towards a nearby creek. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a wolf. It was something large, powerful, aware, and silent. And ever since that night, even in daylight, whenever I walk through those woods, I can still feel something watching me from the tree line.
My name is Daniel Foster. I'm 37 years old and grew up in Oregon, near Mount Hood. I've always loved the forest. It's my place of peace. I feel at home when all I can hear is the murmur of the river, the creaking of branches, and the wind brushing through the tall pines. But that night, by the Zigzag River, I learned that the forest can also watch you and wait. It was September. I went camping with my cousin, Eric, hoping to disconnect for a weekend. We picked a hidden clearing by the water, far from any marked trails or cell signal. The first day was calm. We fished, cooked trout over the fire, and drank beer under a sky full of stars. Nothing hinted at what was coming. On the second night, just before 10, we heard a sharp thud from across the river. It was a heavy impact, like a large rock smashing into a tree. Eric raised the flashlight, but we only saw shapes moving in the fog. "Probably a deer," I said, trying to sound calm. "Deer don't throw rocks," he replied, not taking his eyes off the dark. We laughed a little, more out of nerves than humor. Then came another hit, louder, closer, then another. Something, or someone, was out there, moving between the trees. We put out the fire to stay hidden. The silence that followed was so thick we could hear our own breathing. And came a sound that froze me. Deep, harsh breathing, just beyond the tent. Eric swung the flashlight toward the bushes. Something moved, a broad, heavy figure gliding almost noiselessly through the dark. Instinctively, I grabbed the pepper spray, thinking it was a bear, but when the light caught it full on, I knew immediately it was no animal I'd ever seen. It stood maybe 10 meters away, over 2 meters tall, solidly built, covered in tangled dark hair. Its arms were long and muscular, its head tilted slightly forward, and its eyes, small, sunken, locked on us with an expression I'll never forget. Intelligence, curiosity, and something else, contained anger. Eric pointed the flashlight directly at its face. The creature growled. It wasn't an animal roar. It was deep, guttural, and vibrated through the air like a muffled thunderclap. It took a step forward, unhurried, testing how close it could get. Each step made the ground crunch under its weight. We backed up toward the tent. My hands trembled as I relit the fire. The light stopped it for a moment. It stood just beyond the glow, staring at us. Then it began to circle. We heard heavy thuds as it struck nearby trees with something solid, maybe a rock or a thick branch. Each blow made the ground shudder. Now and then it let out short, high-pitched screams that echoed through the forest. It went on like that for almost 40 minutes. It didn't attack, but it didn't leave either. It was toying with us. Once it got so close we heard fingers brush against the tent fabric. Another time, We saw it crouched by the river, drinking water, while watching us from the corner of its eye. Around 3 in the morning, the forest fell silent again. No more footsteps, no more thuds, just the crackle of the fire and the whisper of the river. We waited until sunrise to step outside. The campsite was a mess. Huge bare footprints surrounded the tent. Branches were snapped more than 2.5 meters high, and one of the fire pit stones was cracked clean through, as if struck by another rock. Eric didn't want to talk about it. When we got back, we told a ranger at the nearest station. He listened quietly and finally said, "If you hear knocks or screams in the woods, don't answer. Out here, that's taken as a challenge." I never went back to the Zigzag River. And now, even in daylight, whenever I'm alone in the forest, I still feel it. Something watching from between the trees, waiting for the light to go out.